The story is told that when Mark Zuckerberg first came to Israel, he was welcomed at the airport by a taxi, and the taxi driver was driving him to Jerusalem, and he said, "Tell me, are you in Israel really as super sophisticated and savvy when it comes to high tech and technology and startups as they say you are?" And the taxi driver said, "Look, I can only tell you this. When I came here, I could hardly speak a word. I didn't have a hair on my head. They had to take me out of bed physically. I couldn't walk. I couldn't talk. And look at me today." So Mark Zuckerberg said, "Wow, that's unbelievable, amazing. When did you come to Israel?" He said, "No, I was born here." I guess I'll keep my my regular job as a journalist and not as a stand-up comic. I'm going to ask each of you to say a few words about your company and what you do and relate to the subject of making things easier for the tourists in Israel and Palestine. So let's start with you, Jack Yulzari. Tell us a little bit about GetBus and how you relate to the subject of accelerating tourism.
So hi, I'm Jack. I'm founder of GetBus. GetBus is an online platform for booking private hire buses. Could be for travel, could be for events, whatever you need, from a big bus down to a 10-person vehicle. You can just go online and book it through several clicks.
Okay, we're going to have follow-up questions later, but just tell us a little bit, though, about how GetBus helps the tourists first coming to Israel.
Okay, so by a raise of hand, tell me if you ever booked a plane ticket, a flight ticket online. Okay, great. So until now, none of you had the ability to book a bus for a group of people online. That's something that is never been done before, and that's what we bring to this travel and transportation table.
Okay. Can you hand over to George? We're honored to have you here. I hope you don't mind if I call you George.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about things from the Palestinian perspective. You're just, let's get your title clear. You're head of the...
Okay, my name is George Abaita. I am the chairman of the Arab Hotel Association that represents all the hotels in the Palestinian districts, include Jerusalem and include Gaza.
Wow, how many hotels are we talking about?
We have about 100 hotels in all the districts. Most of them are in Bethlehem and Jerusalem, and then Ramallah and other countries. Our association is, as I told you, represent all the hotels. We have about 100 hotels, and some of them are related to the religious churches in Bethlehem and Jerusalem. We are also making the classifications for the hotels. Most of the hotels have classified till now, and we are continuing classification for all the hotels in the Palestinian areas.
We could discuss this a little bit further later, but what is the cooperation like between the Israeli Hotel Association and your Hotel Association?
We have good cooperation with the Ministry of Tourism and with all the associations, and we think always that we should market the Holy Land all together in the same name with Holy Land, because we are selling the same products for all the world, so we have to be and to market and to cooperate together all the time to bring more and more people to the country.
Thank you, George. Ran, tell us a little bit about Hadakah Tishim. You really were a front runner in this field in bringing people to make reservations at the last minute, Hadakah Tishim, to come to Israel and to leave Israel to other countries. How are you doing?
So, Dakar 90 was established around 15 years ago, and basically we're the leading online travel agency in Israel. And we're having both domestic as well as the outgoing travelers. And over the past year, we established a new venture called the Car90 Labs, which is basically accelerating Israeli startups in the fields of travel, leisure, and e-commerce, who are interested in both trying their ventures online in high volumes, both on our websites or mobile application, in addition to accelerating the business and going abroad. That's what we're
And
doing.
are you finding that to be a successful endeavor?
Yes, sorry?
What, this project, are you finding that to be successful?
Yes, we established it last year.
Mhm.
We already invested in the first startup, and we've seen dozens of Israeli very interesting startups in these fields, and there are some negotiations currently, and I believe we're going to invest in additional ones.
What do you think the secret is?
Wow, that's a good question. The secret is, of course, it's timing and luck and all of this stuff, but never give up. Never give up, because even at tough times, you must believe in what you do. You must know how to change your business plan sometimes. And if you never give up, you're going to succeed.
Thank you. Yohan, these are tough times for tourism in Israel. Tourism has gone down. You have the Abraham Hostel in Jerusalem, and I believe you're building a new one in Tel Aviv. You're attracting a younger crowd, I assume. How do you do that?
So first of all, in a nutshell, Abraham Hostels is the first, I would say, meaningful hostel chain in Israel, following models from Europe and Australia. We have in Jerusalem 75 rooms and 260 beds. And the crowd is not only the young people, it has a young vibe, but it's ranged from 18 to 80-year-olds. It's
Really?
young and young at heart. We have a lot of private rooms, families, businessmen, couples. So it's not only about the young backpackers, even though we do have a lot of them, and they are important and they are the base for the business. And as you mentioned, we are opening Abraham Hostel Tel Aviv with approximately 380 beds towards the end of the year. Hopefully in December 1st we'll open that. And we also have our own tour company, Abraham Tours, which is based on our crowd and also people from the outside, all catering for independent travelers. So we do tours in Jerusalem, the Dead Sea, the West Bank, northern parts of Israel, southern parts, and also going even to Jordan and Egypt. And it's all part of being a one-stop shop for the independent traveler. The war did affect us, but I feel that it affected us less than other traditional tourism businesses in Israel, because we are focusing on FITs, not groups, not agents. They are booking directly with us. About 80% of our bookings come directly with us. So people that don't have to jeopardize, financially large amounts of money if they have to change or last minute cancel. So they don't care. If the situation is a bit I would say tense, so they might ask more questions, but they are not in a hurry to cancel, and they are more flexible in their plans. And so we did get an effect, but we didn't drop to 20 and 30% occupancy. We dropped to 60%, I would say, in the summer, and now we are almost, I can say, back in business like we were last year.
Meaning that things have picked up to the degree that you're full?
We are not full. We did have some. October was a very good month and identical to last year. And winter, winter is slower, but still we are in between 60-65% in the winter, and picking up in end of February looks quite good. And March will be. We expect to be full in March, like usually we are.
Great. Ron, so you were a trekker yourself, and then you decided one day to establish Trekking In. Tell us a little bit about that.
Trekking In is a social navigation tool for backpackers and travelers looking about outdoor activities. We develop an application and website, and the idea is we connect all the small businesses and the local businesses to the trek, and led to the backpackers to connect them and found the business they want to stay overnight or use their service.
While you've got the microphone, let me ask you a question that I'd like to pose to all of the panelists, which is, Israel has a little bit of an image in the media, and I'm to blame for this maybe as well, as being a country that's not safe. How do you counter that image? How do you reach out to people and say to them, it is safe to trek around Israel?
All the idea is all the backpackers love to share information between us to another people. And if you see one person one backpackers know is not safe a place, he share this information with another backpackers in our community or in our Facebook group, and all the information moving around with all the backpackers.
Would someone else, would you like to comment on that, Yoram?
Yeah, I think that it really depends on the crowd that you are focusing on. And the modern travelers, millennial travelers as you might call them, or the modern FITs, they are more conscious. They have different information sources which are not the traditional media. It can be social networks, it can be blogs, it can be friends and people that are connected to, and do not rely necessarily on the BBC or CNN to tell them whether it's safe or not. So this is a big advantage for us focusing on this crowd. And on top of that, I think during this summer and also afterwards, we are trying all the time to show regular life, regular people, the fact that restaurants are open, bars are open, the city is as usual. And it's not something that people comprehend if they're not here. They think, okay, it's wartime, the entire country is shut down. And we know the reality is different, but we need to showcase this. And the fact that we keep having our events and activities and tours is something that people, when they see it on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and then they understand, okay, it's daily life. It's the same thing that as I see here back home. So it makes a difference.
Ron, another part of Israel's image is that it's very expensive here, that people can't afford to come here because it's so expensive. Dakar Tishim, Dakar 90 offers the most reasonable rates, at least that's what you advertise. How do you attract people who perhaps think of Israel and Palestine as an expensive country that they can't afford to come to?
Well, basically, we don't deal with incoming travelers. We're dealing with outgoing as well as domestic travelers. So our main activity is to promote our products in reasonable and good prices for the domestic travelers.
For Israelis traveling
Yes,
outside?
Exactly.
Okay.
Both outside and both locally.
And so what is your major challenge? You say you established the company 15 years ago. How do you see it developing over the years? How do you see it in 15 years' time?
First of all, we can see the high increase in the percentage of online travelers who are booking their entire travel online without the assistance of any offline agent. We can see this trend is increasing over the years. Over the past 2 or 3 years, we see a high increase in mobile travelers. There's a new term called MTA, which is mobile travel agent, which is replacing the online travel agent. And these are the two trends that we see over the past few years. Our business is growing very fast.
George, are you witnessing this recovery in Palestinian areas as well when it comes to tourism? And do you find that more and more people are coming now that the situation has calmed down relatively?
No, we also have the same problem because, as you said before, all the world around the world said that Israel and Palestine is not safe because every year or every 2 years we have a new war, we have new things. Many problems, sometimes in Jerusalem, sometimes in Gaza, sometimes in the north. The second thing, people afraid because when they come or arrive to Ben Gurion airport, they ask them, where you want to go? And they said, sometimes they said to them, it's not safe to be in East Jerusalem, or it's difficult for you to go to Ramallah, or it's difficult to reach to Bethlehem. This is also, it's something that give a bad impression for the people and tourists to come again and to tell other people to come.
What are you doing to correct this impression to make things better?
As I told you before, we are trying with all the time to speak about the good things that we have, especially with the Ministry of Tourism, Palestinian and Israeli Ministry of Tourism, and with our partners in the private sector in Israel. but I think it's political matters at the end.
Mhm.
So sometimes we can make something, sometimes we can't make anything.
I mean, tell us what the situation is like on the ground. Are you seeing travelers coming to Bethlehem and Ramallah and other places in the Palestinian territories more and more? Or are you seeing it's pretty much stable?
It depends on the, first of all, it depends on the political situation.
Mhm.
We are in the same situation in Israel and in Palestine.
So there's a
It's-
correlation with tourism to both?
Yes,
Mhm.
because you know, anything happening around us in the regional districts or regional countries, we will get cancellation, we will get
Mhm.
less and less people to come.
I mean, I bet that most people in the world would think of Israel and Palestine as two separate entities in a way, and that we never meet. And here you are in Tel Aviv speaking at an Israeli tourism conference. When you look at the bigger picture, what's going to help? A peace deal?
It should be,
Yeah.
should
That-
be.
And until that happens?
We have to make all what we can do to achieve this object, because for us and for the Israelis, without working and cooperating together to bring more and more people and to sell this country together, it's not allowed for anybody to sell alone or to make borders for the tourists or the pilgrimage that are coming to the Holy Land, because they want to be, they want to see everything open for them. If they say they saw like this, they will come more and more people to the country. Thank you.
Jack, you can relate to that, and then I have a follow-up question for you as well.
Yeah, I think the focus on the political side is basically boring.
Mhm.
We don't want to focus on that. Coming to Israel is fun. It's just the greatest place on earth, basically, if you ask me. We need to forget about focusing on the political side. You can never get enough of that. It never helps. If we focus on the fun stuff of getting a great experience in Abraham hostels or getting to a great track via trekking in, whatever, that's what people love to share, and that's what gets other people to come and try the experience themselves. So I think that all we should do is just focus on the good stuff.
Focus on the positive.
Yeah.
George wanted to comment about that.
The problem or the things that we are in the Palestinian hotels depend on groups,
Mhm.
and most of them are pilgrimages. For example, I was sitting with a travel agency from Germany last night. They said they are asking people, please come, just register and come. They don't want to come
Why?
because of all the problems around
Mhm.
around it. This is different than other, that is Mr.
Jack.
Jack is saying about, because we are really different and working in other markets
Mhm.
that than what they are working or what they are
Mhm.
selling.
Okay, we're winding down a little bit. I just want to ask you each another question. Jack, you and I were talking earlier about how smaller startups cope with bigger, larger companies, sometimes monopolies in a way. And the competition out there is really stiff. How do you do it, and how do you survive in these circumstances?
Yeah, so the travel industry has several global giants that are very innovative,
Mhm.
and they have a lot of resources, and when a new startup comes around, tries to get some tractions, to get tourists to use their services, etc., they go head to head right away with those big giants as well as other startups. And there is a gap here that usually gets filled up by venture capital. You get a lot of resources, and you get your product to become better, and you get traction to make it better. And in the travel industry, it's very hard because venture capital investors are very afraid and to invest in travel startups because of those giants. And there are initiatives like the Kati Shim's initiative that comes in to fill this gap. It's taking its baby steps, and I hope that it will become not only bigger, that it will become the first in many to fill in the gap, because there are so many great services that tourists are missing out because they can't go past the first phase of getting the base product.
Thank you. Ron, what do you think is the message that sells to the Israeli, you say you deal mostly with outgoing tourism, to the Israeli tourist?
The message?
Yeah, what is it that works with the Israeli tourist?
Wow. First of all, pricing, of course, works very well. We know that from our main activity. Basically, we're a good value for money. So we're not cheap, but we're providing good value for money. And I think that pricing is in the entire world, it has a high impact on online travel sales. Afterwards, of course, good service, good UI and good experience online when you order your reservation online and all of this stuff.
Turkey used to be the most popular destination for Israelis. What is it today?
We are still,
Still Turkey?
yes, in the online travel agencies, we are the leading one. And we recently expanded our activities in addition to the travel industry to additional fields. We bought some companies, both in the fields of spa treatments. We are now the #1 player in the spa marketing online, as well as another company called Medraft, which is active in the adventure and nature tourism, which is for both outgoing as well as income travelers.
Thank you. Yaron, you said you're opening this new hostel in Tel Aviv. Where's it going to be actually?
It's Harakebet Street, right next to Rothschild and close to Gan HaChashmal, right in the heart of the nightlife.
What do you think about the idea of branding Israel for, let's say, gay tourists, branding Israel in a different way that gets more people to come here, targeting certain segments of the tourist population, if you like, around the world?
Well, we are actually trying not to invent the wheel, and I don't think that we should do that. I mean, we should look at other models in the world, other countries that are trying to open themselves to new crowds. And you mentioned that in the Palestinian hotels, you mainly rely on groups. This is something that Israeli tourism has been doing in the last 40 years, 50 years, and this must change because the world is changing. Things like this smartphone and tablets and generally the values that people have nowadays, focusing on the self and not on the group, is something which changes the way that people travel. And that to travel more, and you need to approach them in a way that they're used to, meaning not to try to sell them the Holy Land. Try to offer them an experience. Try to offer them time off from life, which will be a meaningful time and not just a fancy resort. It can be fancy, but still they want to experience something. And we have a lot of stuff like that here in Israel and in the Middle East. And actually, I definitely think that it should all be marketed together. Obviously, there is more and more segmentation, and this has to do with the things that each and every one of us is doing when you're doing your marketing. So you have to segmentize your crowd, and if there is a big event like the Gay Parade in Tel Aviv, so okay, you'll focus your marketing there and try to attack them at this time, but it's not only this. You have to know how to offer, if you send a newsletter, so if there's like, let's say, a big religious event, so You send the newsletter only to people that you know that are coming in these times and they are more interested in this. But it's more of offering a general experience and not, I think, and this is, I think it's working as well, not just stating we are the Holy Land, this is where all began. It's just, it doesn't cut it. And people, they are looking for something new. And people are very curious about Israel, but you have to show them different sides of the country.
Okay, and Ron, I'm going to give you the last word here. You've been all over the world and seen how other countries do it. We've obviously got a lot to learn here. What do you think we can do to make things better?
I think in Israel the most problem for backpackers or travel, going to make low-cost travel in Israel is transformation. You not have a bus and weekend, and it's a big problem for them. To go to the start of the trail and finish where they want, and after to catch a bus and found the hostel to go there. I think this is the most problem in Israel for the independent traveler. And this is, I know Abraham Hostel also work about that to fix this problem.
So how do we solve this problem?
I think in Israel is just to connect with a taxi or agency to pick up in the end of the trail or in the start to take you to the beginning of the trail.
Okay, I think that was a fascinating discussion. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I'd like to thank all our panelists for joining us today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you, Steve. It was a great job.